Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo, and this is going to be another week in review, and this time we're adding even another news segment, or more specifically, another news segment. So what I'm going to start doing in these weekly reviews to add to the what I played that week, what the whole week was like and all that, I'm going to cover brief pieces of what went on in the hobby this week. Nothing big, not in depth, literally just mentioning them and talking about it for like 10 seconds each or whatever it is, just in case you weren't already aware, and I figure we'll start with that and see how this goes. So starting off, we have Asmodee buys Board Game Arena. If you're not familiar, Board Game Arena is one of the more popular sites where you can play games, and Asmodee is the big corporate overlord that's going to eat all the various, things, although drastically overstating just how bad it is or isn't. At the end of the day, Asmodee is the largest company in this space, but they still pale in comparison to the sheer number of other companies out there. But they went ahead and bought Board Game Arena, and they already announced a bunch of titles that are going to be coming to Board Game Arena. We'll see how it plays out. Ultimately, they said the pricing will remain the same. We'll see how long that lasts, and if it does or doesn't, not a huge deal. We'll figure it out. Lots of places online to play board games. Board Game Arena is not the only place, and speaking for myself, it's not even my favorite place. Number 2. Great Western Trail announced a reprint and trilogy. This was picked up by Plan B Games. They have new art for the game. If you are someone who thought that the cover art of Great Western Trail looked like someone had an Xbox game from 1984, there were no Xboxes. I don't even know how far back I'm going. Someone had an old video game in the back corner of a store somewhere with terrible art. Well, that was Great Western Trail, but they are doing new art for, at least for the boxes. I don't know if they're doing new art for everything else, but they announced a trilogy. So in 2021 or 2 or something, they're going to have Great Western Trail, and then they're going to have the same mechanisms a year later and a year later in Argentina and somewhere else after that. And it's going to be kind of like Ticket to Ride, or kind of like the Century series, or kind of like Azul for that matter, taking a common game mechanism and then extrapolating it to a series of games. Although what makes this one unique is this will be, I believe, the heaviest game I have ever seen that principle applied to, so we'll see how that plays out. But color me excited. Great Western Trail is a game that I liked but didn't love, and now I get to find out whether I should get it back, because I believe they're also tweaking some things about the game, and we'll see how that plays out. And then lastly, this is a smaller one because I don't have a lot of information on this one. Sub-Astral from Renegade Games, which is just announced. This is going to be a blend of hand management and set collection, with the twist that when you collect a set also matters. And so I don't know how that actually plays out, but the art looked cool. And so Sub-Astral, that's a game coming from Renegade Games. And that's going to be the news. Just 3 things I heard this week, and it's going to be that degree of accuracy in future weeks too. Just things I heard that I thought worth mentioning if or when they show up. From there, what I played, and as usual, timestamps down below for everything. What I played. So, this was a lighter week, and I know lighter is a relative term. Lighter for me means I played under 14 games a week. I averaged less than 2 games a day. I played Court of Miracles. That's going to be a Lucky Duck Games. I will be reviewing that, so I will not talk about it now. But Court of Miracles, I got in a few more plays of it. I played it, when did I play it? I played it like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I got in a few more plays of it, and we'll be doing a review at some point. We have Battle for Rokugan. Battle for Rokugan is a great game that I absolutely should review. That one's been in my collection for a long time. I've talked about it in other videos. It's a solid game. It gives you the bluffing and traitorousness and manipulation and betrayal and all that stuff that you find in Game of Thrones. But that's all it does. It just does that one part. The part that Game of Thrones, the board game, did so well. Battle for Rokugan does it. And then that's all the game is. There's nothing else going on. No overt battle mechanics or this and that. It's pure and simple, placing down tokens to secretly plan what you're going to do, and then reveal them at the same time. I played Gods Love Dinosaurs, which is also a game that I will be reviewing at some point, so no comments there. Bantam West. Bantam West is the game that you see next to me over here. Bantam West is one that I am going to be talking about because I haven't seen a lot of buzz about this one. I haven't seen, in fact, I didn't know anything about it. It didn't make its way into any of my, what's coming up Kickstarter lists, but somebody reached out to me and said, hey, I played this game, I think you'll like it, do you want to play the game with the designer? And so I played the game with the designer. And now he sent me a prototype because I liked the game. I guess that's a spoiler. I'm not going to say I won't have comments or critiques. I always have comments or critiques. But overall, I very much like the game, and interestingly enough, the designer's already taken into account various pieces of feedback that I've already given him as well as other people I've played with, so they are constantly iterating, so even then, this very much falls into the category of not a, slap it on, ready to go game. This is going to be constantly iterated, and some of the art in this game is very nice. Somebody like all these like nice little things, these dice I'm playing with this, they have a little care package, he has some art posters or art prints or whatnot. Let me see if I can get the glare off there. But that's a beautiful piece of art. I mean, all these posters over here, there's 4 or 5 of these, and they all are very, very attractive or pretty or whatever the word is. But Bantam West is a game that I got a play-in of this week. And that one, apparently, I did spoilers for, so we'll see how that goes out. Cockroach Royal, it's one that I get in every single week. Whenever I get together with our group, like I said, I've said in the past, we have a group of 4 people that's our game group. Our game group's condensed from 20 to around 4 people, and Cockroach Royal is one that we like playing every single time. Cthulhu Wars, I got in more Cthulhu Wars, and this one, I do have a review coming for this one at some point. I don't know when, so I guess I'll talk about it a little bit. Cthulhu Wars is a great game. It is. It's also like my least favorite of the area control, powers, and abilities games that I have in my collection. It's good. I mean, I have it in my collection for a reason, and it's still in my collection for right now. But when looking at the shelves and choosing which games to play, I'd rather play a whole lot of other games over Cthulhu Wars. For right now, what I'm doing is I have Glorintha, The Gods War, which is also by Peterson Games, and it's supposed to be very similar to Cthulhu Wars, sharing a lot of the same notes. I plan on playing that one a little bit and seeing which one I prefer, and then making decisions accordingly. So we'll see how that goes. Then I played Truffle Shuffle. Truffle Shuffle is a game that, well, there will be a review going up this Saturday, today, so we'll talk about it later. I played that game, which we're not going to talk about. Then I played Chamber of Wonders, which is also going to be a game that has a review going up Saturday. I got a few games of that in. And then Clank Legacy, which we're in the middle of Clank Legacy. We got another play in. Want to knock it out, get those, 10 plays in, and move on. Overall, I mean, maybe I'll do a review of it. We'll see. Overall, I'm still liking Clank Legacy. Not loving it, but enjoying it enough to keep going. I like the system. I like the progression. I'm not as enamored with it as I think many others are. And I hate the amount of time I spend stickering and reading and doing things that aren't playing the game. And that's going to be my, what I played this week or whatnot. From there, going to the schedule last week, what happened? So, to begin with, we had Review Day, where we covered Chai and Cult of the Deep. Chai is a game I reviewed with Ricky. I think it's a very lightweight game that's an entry game. I remember someone talking recently, I can't remember who it was, I heard someone talking about the idea that light is used derogatorily. Derogatory, I think that's the word. And I agree. I think the light is used in a derogatory manner. And I don't disagree with that, but I think it's a question of target audience. To many people, many of you watching my videos, light will be something that scares you away. It doesn't mean it's a bad game, but it might mean it's a bad game for you. Monopoly is going to outsell any single one of the games we play, but there's a target audience for it. I think Chai is a great, lighter game that will have its place or whatever it is. For myself, it is very much on the lighter side. It's staying in our collection for right now, but that's because Ricky wants it, not because I want it. For myself, I prefer other lighter games. It's fun, don't get me wrong, but I'd rather play Century Spice Road, or Century Golem Edition more specifically, or other games like that. But overall, Chai, I am looking forward to the 2-player version. Supposedly that one ups the strategy and the head-to-head a bit more, so I'm very intrigued with that one. Then, Cult of the Deep. Cult of the Deep was a Kickstarter game that was a hidden roll Kickstarter game, whatnot, rolling dice, Yahtzee style, dealing with the cultists and your various assignees and whatnot. Overall, solid game. That one I'm adding to my collection for right now. I don't know about its long-term longevity. There are enough things that I like that I want to keep playing and to see how it goes, but also enough things that I wasn't totally sold on, including downtime, that make me wonder if it will last long-term, and we'll see how that plays out. Although, again, it's tricky managing these things with prototypes, because when does it start being in my collection? When the final game arrives? When I got the prototype? All fun questions that I'll have to figure out as I continue to do these videos and continue to be on this whole YouTube thing. Sunday was 27 games I added to my collection. Speaking of games adding to my collection and whatnot, I went through the 27 games I added to my collection in the second half of 2020. All the games I played that I think are sticking around for a while. Now, I could be wrong with some of them. I mean, I literally just mentioned Cthulhu Wars and then talked literally a second later about how Cthulhu Wars may or may not be staying in my collection. And I got in a play between filming that video and talking about it now. That's when I got another play. So Cthulhu Wars may or may not be in my collection, but I think even if Cthulhu Wars leaves, I think it'll be because Glorantha God's War did it better. Meaning it wasn't that Cthulhu Wars was bad, it's that I'm gonna pick whichever one of those games I think does that system better. It'll still be my least favorite from my area control hybrid games or whatnot, but still one that I enjoy pulling out. I do enjoy the asymmetric aspect of what's going on. So lots of games were in that video, but basically they're the things that I think will stick around. And when I do that video again 3 or 6 months from now, I will talk about which ones I was right about and wrong about, which ones left over time, because it always is interesting to predict not just what I'm holding on to for now, but what will make its way long-term in my collection. Monday was going to be upcoming Kickstarters, and I believe I skipped Bantam West in that one, because when I filmed that video, I hadn't yet played Bantam West, and so I didn't know anything about Bantam West when I filmed the upcoming Kickstarter video. And from those, my most excited is going to be The Witcher. I'm very excited about The Witcher coming in May, but a whole bunch of them. There's a lot of Kickstarters coming. I enjoyed, in a sadistic little manner, I enjoyed seeing all the comments in the video about, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to have a light few months, and I don't know what's coming and what I'm going to do about this. And I agree. And I'm sadistic about it because I feel the same way. I'm going through like all this prep of what's coming up, and I'm realizing every time I add a game to my list, I realize just how much stuff is coming up. There's literally like hundreds and hundreds of Kickstarters. Now, most of them fly under the radar. Most of them are ones that we don't particularly care about. And by we, I mean the majority. Meaning some of you will back that Kickstarter. Others won't. Others of you will back another Kickstarter. But a lot of them are going to be smaller stuff that have, 500 to 1,000 backers and don't hit general mainstream. But there's a lot more that will pick up 2,000, 3,000 backers that will have enough audience, enough pull, enough something that they're going to be on your radar and you're going to have to make decisions around them. And so it's going to be a packed few months, and it doesn't stop. It's not like it suddenly vanishes after we get through March. This video was February and March Kickstarters. It's just going to keep going. It's always going to keep going. You have to figure out what you're going to play and all of that. Tuesday. Missing my days up again. Tuesday was going to be my review of Bloodstone. Speaking of games that, you have to decide what you're adding to your collection or whatnot. Bloodstone is a game that I reviewed together with Jesse from Quacklope, and it's solid. I'm really enjoying it. Price point is high in the campaign. We will do a should you back, I will do a should you back it video at some point. I don't know exactly when, because I'm kind of waiting to see what they add in terms of, they've had 3 daily reveals. By the time when I'm filming this video, they've had 3 daily reveals so far, and 2 of them were chapter unlocks, and then one of them was, I think, the wash, which they unlocked even though they didn't hit the 5,000 backers, which was nice of them. But so far, it's very hard to see whether there is additional content of any kind, and so I keep pushing off the should you back it video because I feel it's going to be an incomplete picture. To be clear, I'm pretty sure it's going to hold this value either way. Being a good game that is Kickstarter exclusive will do that. But I think it's a good game that'll hold its value that's also overpriced. So those things are contextual. Now, overpriced is also a relative term. So I would say wait till I do the should you back video. I'm going to go through everything. Not everything is apples and oranges and whatnot, or apples versus apples, whatever it is. The minis are larger, the amount of content you get. I'll be comparing it against Super Fantasy Brawl, not just in gameplay, but in what's, in terms of the price point of the various Kickstarters or whatnot. So yeah, I'll be covering Bloodstone, but I'm kind of going on a complete tangent. This was a review of Bloodstone, not a review of the price of Bloodstone. I like to keep those separate. Wednesday was Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, should you back it or not. Speaking of price, I thought that the game looked fun. I haven't played it, but the game looks like a game that I will enjoy. It's definitely one that I want to add to my collection, and it's one that I'm probably backing, even though I don't think you should, or I should, because you're paying more for it than you need to otherwise. I'm literally paying for the privilege of getting it early, which is something I'm only ever willing to do when I know I like the game. I will not pay for the privilege of getting a game early if I don't know I like the game and I haven't played it. But when I have played it, or that's not true, when I have played it, or I'm that sure I'll like it because it's an expansion, or in this case an offshoot, then I'm willing to say, you know what, I'll pay the $5-10. It's okay, I'll live with myself and it's fine. Wednesday, I'm losing all these days. Thursday was going to be Zombicide, Undead or Alive, should you back it. Speaking of playing games, that one I did have the opportunity to play it. Overall, I like it. I'm not sure where it'll land in terms of my favorite Zombicide to date is still Black Plague, and I don't know if this one will beat that. I think it will very much depend on the heroes, the abominations, and what extra creatures they kind of throw at you. Like, I totally want the wolves. In fact, to the point, if they don't give me wolves, I may just throw my wolves in from Black Plague and say, look at that, we got wolves. Although I guess you can't, because I'd need matching cards, right? I'd need matching spawn cards. That's annoying. They better give me something. They better give me a bunch of variable zombies that mix up the experience. I'm not looking for an accessible Zombicide. If you want that, buy the base game. I want them to mix it up, to be absolutely crazy. Give me some stuff that just I have to figure out how to tactically plan around what they're going to do. Double activations, triple movement, jumping on top of balconies, taking over the Gatling gun. I want a zombie that when it gets to the Gatling gun, it starts using it against you. I want something. But I just like it when Zombicide games give you more stuff to figure out how you want to deal with them. I don't like it when it's just like, oh, hey, we got a runner, a walker, a runner, and a fatty, and an abomination. Let's call it a day. I want variability in my Zombicide games. That one unknown factor aside, Dead or Alive or Undead or Alive is definitely my second favorite Zombicide over Invader, over the early ones or all that. We'll see how it actually lands or plays out over long term and whatnot. Friday, look at that, I got the day right. Friday I did a video for Are Minis Really Necessary? And I go into that in that video with the fact that, first of all, obviously the answer is no. Nothing's really necessary. They're board games, but I go through it a bit more. I'm very into the deluxified experience. I think that's what Kickstarter gives us. If I just want a board game, I'll wait for it to show up on my shelf. To me, Kickstarter, or board games in general, they are a luxury product. They are a luxury item. They are something that's not just about what you're playing on your table. There's many cheaper board games if you want that. So some board games I think should and will be designed around accessibility. Other board games should and are designed around giving you hordes of plastic or beautiful art or deluxified components. There's room for both in this hobby, and it will be frustrating when somebody says, but that game, that deluxified game that looks overproduced, that's the one I just want to play. I don't care if it has minis or plastic or who knows what. And so there is going to be that aspect of a product that is functional, that you want the functional part, but you have to kind of buy into the premium part, and that will be frustrating for some. For myself, it's what I'm looking for. If you took away that deluxification, I would like it less. Every time I've played a tiny epic game, it's not that they're bad. It's that I sit there and I look at them and I say, this was a solid game. I want to play the bigger version of it that does more. They don't do enough innovative for me, at least so far from the ones I've played. Tiny epic games have not done enough innovative things that I'm willing to engage in the less deluxified kind of condensed experience. It's not big, it's not small enough to carry in my pocket, and it's not big enough to give me all the fun stuff I want. And so I think board games are very much going to be about target audiences, and that's a factor. But that's going to be the minis necessary. Which brings us to today. Today is going to be 2 reviews coming up after this. At 10 o'clock, no, I always say that, at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we're going to have a review of Truffle Shuffle that I did together with my wife and daughter. It's the first video that we've done, all 3 of us together. And then at 2 o'clock, we're going to have Chamber of Wonders, which is a Ludus Magnus Studio game coming to Kickstarter on, I believe, February 23rd, so I believe Tuesday. A few notes about those. First of all, in terms of Truffle Shuffle, this was the first time that we had any degree of scripting. We didn't really script anything because we don't script, but we did say, well, you do this section, I'll do this section, then you'll do this section. Just covering who covers what section. That's because it's hard enough to manage 2 people kind of finding that ebb and flow of conversation. 3 gets even harder, especially when one of them is your 9-year-old daughter, who is not always looking for those cues of when to or not to talk. So that's going to be that. Secondly is I changed my review system, my rating system. Basically, and going back to my video earlier of I'm adding ratings to my reviews or whatever I called it, going back to that, I had a lot of comments talking about the different aspects of ratings, and many of those people were right. I don't like the 1 to 10 scale. I thought I would because I thought it was more standardized, and it is more standardized. But it just makes me feel weird every time I rate a game on a scale that doesn't actually resonate with myself, with my own personal rating system. And so I am moving back to my own personal rating system, the way I rate games, tweaking the language slightly to be more accommodating to the general ecosystem as opposed to my own personal collection. And so from that stance, I'll put it down below, or I'll have it down below in every single review that has my rating scale. But short version of that is going to be a 5 is a great game. It's in my collection, period. Done. Simple. 4 is a really solid game. I'm happy it's in my collection. Not quite as good as a 5, but it's a really, really solid game. Like it a lot. 3 is going to be a good game. There's lots of good games out there. There's so many good games. And some of those 3s are going to be in my collection. Some of those 3s will not. And that's going to depend on player count. It's going to depend on whether other people will play the game with me. It's going to depend on whether other similar games I have in my collection in terms of games that give me that same feeling but better or whatnot. And so that's a 3. A 3 is a game. There are many, many 3s I have in my collection, and there are many 3s that I don't. Some 3s have lasted a long time. I have some 3s, I have to go through my list of my own personal collection, but I have some 3s that have lasted in my collection for years. But the sad reality is many 3s, even when they get added to my collection, they are the ones that get that stinky eye when I'm looking at which games to purge, and so they don't often last forever, or more than a year or whatnot. That's going to be 3s. 2s are games that I'm either not the target audience for, or there's too many issues with it. I generally don't think there are a lot of bad games out there. And speaking of which, 1s will be bad games. I don't know if I've played anything that I can categorize as a 1. I think 2 is the lowest thing I can categorize. There are certainly 1s. I just don't regularly play them. LCR is going to be a 1. It's not a question of I'm not the target audience. It's just a bad game. Versus 2, I mean, there's so many different 2s out there that, for instance, for me, Pipeline would be a 2 for me. It's a game that I'm not the target audience for. I do not enjoy playing that game. And that's going to be true for many, many different games. But again, 1s aren't really there. 2s are, bad games. No, I'm not the target audience for, or too many issues with it. Too many different, whatever. Like Etherfields is a great example. For me, Etherfields is a 4. But I can totally see Etherfields being a 2 for many people. It's a good game, but there are a lot of issues with it. And so if you're not pulled in enough by the promise of it, then it would be a 2 by using my rating system as an example. But either way, that's just that, and hopefully this won't change that rapidly, but we'll see. Next week or this week, I don't know if I'm going to be done yet. I plan on going through all 80 reviews I've done on the channel since I've started, and assigning each one of those, 1 through 5, so just so people can see for transparency how I rate each of those games. And I'm mostly done. I'm about halfway done, I should say. I may or may not be done in time to put them in this video. If not this video, then I'll put them in next week, just so you have a reference point. At some point, I need to be able to open up my list so that everyone can see and just check and whatever. But I mean, we'll see. I have to think about how, in general, handling my own data is something I need to think about how I want to handle it or whatnot. And that's going to be everything. This video went on for far too long, but that's what happens when you keep adding segments to what's supposed to be a roundup video. Lastly, next week they have a whole bunch of videos coming, one of which that I'm excited about. I'll actually say 2 of which I'm excited about. 2 of which I'm excited about are going to be the best 10 games I don't own. This is going to be almost the counter to the worst 10 games in my collection. This is going to be the best 10 games I don't own. So we'll go through basically my 10 favorite games that I would love to own, and for one reason or another, I don't. From there, we're going to have later in the week, or at some point in the week, I have a collaboration with Board Game Ramblings. If you haven't watched them, that's hello everybody, and I'm not able to do it quite as well. But Board Game Ramblings, which can be Johannes and Sunniva, they're a great channel. Maybe I'll throw a link into the description down below if I remember here, but there'll certainly be a link in the description when I do my collaboration video with them, where I just go through 20 questions, just asking them a bunch of questions, because why not? And that's everything. That's going to be your week in review. As usual, I am Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo. I hope you have a delightfully wonderful week. There are more Kickstarters coming up, a whole bunch of Kickstarters. This Monday is going to be a Kickstarter roundup because there's going to be a lot of Kickstarters to cover, and I have to sit there and figure out how and when I'm doing the research for them. Until next time, enjoy your Saturday, enjoy your weekend. I am Alex, I said that already, and have a good one.